Calling the regular village council meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any additions, deletions, changes to the proposed agenda for this evening? Sir. Good to hear. Roll call.
President Schneider.
Present.
President Pro Tem Dyke.
Present.
Councilmember Feldman.
Present.
Councilmember Glasser.
Present.
Councilmember Kuligowski.
Present.
Councilmember Powell. Councilmember Steffler.
Present.
So communications from Laura. License and Regulation Affairs, and essentially from Liquor Control Commission. Governor Whitmer was writing directly to me. You can see, because my email's on it. It's referencing the purchase by Alex Entertainment Inc. of what's known in town as Mikey's. And that is, and the Liquor Control Commission has approved a conditional license for the corporation. Aaron Alec is the sole shareholder of that corporation. They've approved the conditional license. We have a few more hurdles we have to jump over, but we're really close, probably within next week or two. I have a meeting set up with the Liquor Control Commission investigator who should be coming out to the site and interviewing Aaron and then we make presentation of documents, multiples, and she'll be taking measurements. That all is part of the process of issuing a permanent license. The conditional license is good for one whole year. And so Liquor Control moves at lightning speed compared to how things work. It used to take 9 months to a year. The commission now meets once or twice every week. So they're operating on a much more efficient basis. So that's what this is about. And so what's highlighted there is if local government wants to submit an opinion, as the letter says, on the application or advise of any local non-compliance issues. So if anybody in council thinks that should be done, this would be the opportunity to do so. If there are any questions, we'd be happy to take them. So not hearing any loudspeakers or other voices looking to address that issue. I believe it's fair to conclude, unless I hear anything to the contrary, that local government has no opinion or communication to provide to the Liquor Control Commission. And if there isn't any, we can move on. I think that was the only communication for this evening. So moving on to the regular meeting minutes for our November 7 council meeting. The only little typo that I saw was council manager comment, first line, manager Trent stated, it said brunch and Joe's, and it's actually brunch at Joe's. Make sure to drive by and look and see. Yeah, it does say yeah. I didn't see anything else. Anybody else have any commentary with regard to the minutes from the 7th? Okay, moving on. General fund, major streets, local streets, Parks and Recreation Fund, I'm skipping over something here. Well, I guess after Parks and Recreation Fund, I don't know what this next sheet is.
Okay. Is the one after Parks and Rec.
Yes, thank you, yeah. So that is definitely DDA.
I do have a question with that one.
Sure.
So there, and I questioned this the last time there was a big ticket item on here for the fountain. I'm guessing that's what this infrastructure is for masonry work, $5,600. I know we just spent $2,400.
No, that was for the dumpster enclosure behind Roots. Yes, the masonry repair work, yeah. Apparently several times. It's been-
Are we getting reimbursed by insurance company or something?
No.
So people are running into it and not making a claim? Because they can actually.
And we don't have
Get-
cameras on it, and so.
Okay, understood.
Do we have room or the ability to put protectors around it, like poles?
I want to say there is poles.
There is on the corners, so
On the
they're
corner.
running into the middle of the wall,
So
which means they're probably damaging their vehicles, which means that they're making insurance claims and not properly notifying us.
Yeah, it's hard, vandalism is part of the theme, it seems at times. So, I mean, if you don't have your dumpster, we have a dumpster for our office. If we don't have it locked up with a chain and, 15 number combination lock, people dump their couches in and what.
The other question I do have here too, it looks like it's actually for the high school, but I did see this in town, so Raider football team flags.
yeah, they're the ones that went up on the light poles.
Okay, so these are the ones that went on the light poles.
Yes.
So you had on DDA, Pete? All right, let me address what you addressed with regard to the fountain. That was a major topic of conversation at our recent DDA meeting, which was last Wednesday, or Thursday, excuse me. I had to reschedule to a different day than normal. So it was a major topic of conversation, and certainly much controversy revolving around the cost. And major conversation as part of that conversation was the cover. So I think it's steel cover now, and so talking about going to aluminum, which is made Mr. Treat happy because it's 100 pounds lighter.
100 pounds lighter.
Yeah, at least. And there were saran wrap suggested. I didn't think that would work real well, and you needed to protect that major investment. So it's definitely a matter of concern. And so it's a major topic of conversation and concern, and should we keep spending this money on it? But generally, we're going to keep looking. There was one DDA board member, daughter-in-law.
I know who it is. I watched the meeting.
Who, yes, is recommending that the fountain be done away with. And did indicate my opposition to such a proposal. So getting to war with my daughter-in-law showed me lots of fun, but I'll never see my grandkids again, but stuff happens. Yeah, so she put it on the table. So undoubtedly that'll be discussed too. Part of what's so hard is she doesn't know the history and how this whole thing came to occur, the development of that fountain. The planner from Oakland County had come to advise not only council, but the community, because we actually had meetings with council and business owners and major parties that played a major part in the Village of Almont. What could we do to enhance the town and try to bring more aesthetics to it and bring more business in? Because at that point in time, Village was really kind of a downward slide. And she said, pick a spot and do something to enhance it. And she had recommended that corner and putting up the fountain park, putting up the fountain and developing a park at that area, hoping that the aesthetics would draw in business. There has been aesthetics to it. I think it had some value. She was a different mind that there's bees, and my grandson can't throw his coins into the fountain because you're not allowed to throw anything into it. And she thought that it was a waste of money, essentially. She didn't see it as an attraction. I did. So I presume there's going to be much more discussion on that issue. So we'll see what happens. But it's following up on your point that you see as a major expense. And this time in particular, yes, it was more than usual. But there's clearly going to be more significant discussion, especially since Melissa put it on the table for discussion. So
is it,
we'll see where it goes.
is it possible? I mean, I understand the aesthetics behind it. Thank you for the history lesson on there, because stuff like that is critical to a downtown atmosphere. But I know Mr. Trent was also looking into a bonfire area at Pocket Park. I mean, is it possible to repurpose that fountain into that area and creating, because those are becoming very popular in a lot of other small towns that I've traveled through. So it would still have its legacy behind there and its attraction and feature. Most of the infrastructure is there. It'd be just a matter of a simple conversion to gas or something of that nature to get it up and running. So just a suggestion.
Well, good question. And you actually don't know the significance of what you just indicated. Yes, and Mr. Trent was very much inclined to follow up on that and put that in place. And he was going to put it up right at the southwest corner of Roots, right up against the buildings where he wanted to put it, not replacing the fountain, but that's where he wanted it. And he was very favorably inclined towards doing that. The problem we ran into when that was considered at some length by DDA was, I think it was even the former executive director what was in place, that the gas was going to have to be paid every month, and it was going to be setting it up and installing it was going to be expensive. I think over $25,000.
That was more than that.
Yeah, I thought it was close to 50.
It was like up to 50 to 65.
Yeah.
It was a chunk of cash.
We had a $25,000 grant.
Yes, yeah, and you're gonna have to pay for the gas on a monthly basis, and our budget
And that
can't
was
handle it.
more than the cost of the water that we
Mhm.
already pay on a monthly basis.
So, yeah, I mean, in the abstract, it sounded attractive, but wasn't affordable. And
I understand cost, but in today's world, we just keep throwing away history. I mean, the old town hall sat dank for 10 years and was torn down before I ever got here, but it was a wonderful looking building. Now we've got a fountain that's been here less than 15 years. It's part of the community. It enhances the community. It looks good during the summertime. And because there's a little bit of hassle, all of a sudden we're just going to throw away more tradition and move on because it's a little bit of a pain when it really I mean, the fountain's going to have to be added to the frickin' thing up there.
Things that used to be in Elmont.
Yes. So, I understand the expense, and even if the village has to maintain some of that expense going forward, it's part of our legacy now that enhances that park. It sets the tone for that entire park. And I'd just hate to see it be,
Just taken
where I
away.
grew up, they did the same thing. They had a nice fountain outside the library in City Hall, and they put dirt in and put flowers in it. I mean, we got enough of those triangle things that you
Yeah.
can't walk downtown through because they're triangled out into the sidewalk, so.
Well, yeah, just as part of history, what goes on in the world, as new generations come in, they have less and less inclination towards protecting traditions. And I agree with your position. But that's something that happens a lot of time. And so I understand where it's coming from. I obviously expressed my displeasure with that proposal being made. So it has to be addressed. Aside from village council having to approve DDA's budget, do we have any other controls with regard to DDA? Because I do remember when this was brought up there was a situation, I don't remember the circumstances, where we didn't approve the DDA's budget because there was something going on at the DDA that council did not approve of. Do we have any other mechanisms for addressing DDA actions that you can? So, yeah, that's my thinking. So,
And when we approve the budget, we just approve a lump sum
right.
of the taxes, right? We don't necessarily.
Well, I mean,
Because we
there's a
get
detail.
we get a detailed list. It seems like we approve that for
Yes,
the next
it's as a
fiscal
whole.
year.
Mhm.
Except that, honestly, I think looking at what we see here and attending the meetings, I don't think it really lines up to with what we approved even back in July.
Right.
We've got a lot of expense items on here that you see for the very first time here that were never on an itemized list anywhere. Maybe they were covered under just a broad heading of, general entertainment or general decorations. And it's just a lump sum line item, but it just seems like there's not much detail behind the spending that's happening. That's all.
Well, in attending the meetings, and you said you were watching in any event, and they do try to follow. I mean, it isn't a total disregard, and the issues that you're raising are legitimate for our council to raise, and indicating if you believe that the budget being presented is not as it should be, or there's questions being raised, or it should be presented in greater detail. Those are all issues we can address. But I do remember the one occasion, I no longer remember what the issue was, that council did not approve the DDA's budget because something was going on at the DDA that we thought was a real concern, and we denied their budget. And they promptly, because they still wanted to exist, changed it, and we approved it at a later date.
Yeah, the only
It's
concern,
legitimate.
watching the videos, and thank God for the YouTube videos since the change, because you can watch it now when you can't attend.
Mhm.
It seems like there's, so I'll use the example of what's on the agenda for today, right? Clinton Farley's coming to us to say, hey, I got to put in this new thing. Can you guys approve it? I got 3 quotes. Now, when you watch the DDA meetings, it's usually here's what I got. Can the board ratify the fact that I've already spent the money? Because it was in the budget. Not, hey, I'm thinking about doing this and having these expenses for the next month. Can the board approve that expenditure? That's just my observation over the last 3 or 4 months. We're always within budget because we don't spend more than the lump sum.
Well,
And I know it's not our responsibility to control how they spend their money because it's an approved budget as a lump sum. That's why I asked if it was a lump sum.
well, yeah, they deserve to have some control over their budget, not come to us for each expenditure. And just a fair characterization, I would dispute just somewhat what you've indicated, Pete, in terms of there are quotes, and she goes out and gets quotes, proposals for doing such and such for this much money, and not just saying, I did it and approve it, ratify it because I already did it. I don't think it's fair to say that the director is just saying, well, I'm doing this and just approve whatever I did.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's necessarily the director. I'm just saying it just seems like it's always after the fact. And maybe there's this conversation happening that, not in the full council or the full DDA thing that's happening. I don't know. That's just from being an outsider and watching the meetings, that's my impression. Not to
Interesting.
sidetrack our
Yeah,
agenda here.
well, it's legitimate. And so that whole issue may be coming before us. So, and it's something, when the budget does come to us, you want to address. And that's fine. Ask for more detail and wherever you think they're falling short, you should bring it up, especially leading to the fountain. Okay, so we're on to we are into sewer fund, aren't we? Yeah, sewer fund, water fund, equipment fund, payroll register report, water report. Water's maintaining pretty much what it did last year. DPW monthly report.
The only comment I have about the DPW report is, and maybe this is just in defending Mr. Trent, but in one line it says general items, bullets.
What
picked
page
up-
are you on?
I'm on page 21.
Thank you.
General, under general
Mhm.
title, last bullet, picked up Christmas sleigh for David. But then further down the detail is the Christmas sleigh was picked up for the
I
DDA.
saw that too.
Yeah, that was-
So they didn't really pick it up for David. They
Right.
picked it up for the DDA.
Yeah.
And but just, because we know Mr. Trent, it doesn't need a sleigh.
I noticed that too.
And, just it's going into the record. It's not for him personally. The DDA
Right.
did purchase it.
But there's another underlying issue with that.
Right.
So I understand that we're doing work for the DDA and we're doing work orders, but why are how many people went to Battle Creek?
2.
So why are we sending 2 DPW workers on a 4-hour drive minimum to pick up a sleigh for the DDA? I mean, that's just not the proper use of our resources or the village resources at all. I don't understand that.
And it happened because the manager instructed them to. And legitimate question, right?
Well, the DDA should get billed for their time.
Yes,
and-
they do.
Well, they should, no, I understand that they should be billed for the time and the gasoline utilized.
Mm.
So if they, to make sure we did bill them for both,
Yeah, they get charged the equipment rental
okay.
for the
But
vehicle.
with that said, yeah, upon Mr. Trent's return, we need to make that a discussion point because that's really not an efficient use of village resources.
And I'm not even confident that the DDA was all that hot to trot in getting this sleigh, which was, I don't know what this big.
Who paid for it? Well, if they paid for it, then they're hot to trot for it.
Maybe they were told too,
And
but
I see what
Sure.
you're saying, Tim, but there's also us working together.
There's
You know,
us
and
work,
if
no, there's,
We're
there's,
billing,
there's,
we're billing
there,
for
but
time.
that's 2 resources that's not in the village doing DPW work. They're out doing, they could have had the sleigh shipped. There's other ways you can get a sleigh here from Battle Creek without taking 2 municipal resources that have a lot to do
Do
DPW
you
wise.
think- I mean,
Was that?
if Brian didn't have the time to do it, I'm sure Brian would feel comfortable saying, I can't do that.
How big is
Or
this?
I'm not-
I mean,
it's very, yeah, it was amazingly small. I'm not so sure that Brian would be comfortable saying he didn't want to do it. That's not what we're hearing.
then he should.
Well, I believe he was out of the office on that day. I believe.
I don't know, I agree with helping out and working. I mean, they did yeoman's work with the Heritage Festival, getting the umbrellas put up. That's stuff that's enhancing the town specifically. But doing shipment runs to pick up a sleigh, I mean, yeah, if it was in Romeo, I have no problem with it, but we're driving a company vehicle all the way to Battle Creek to pick up an item. That's not a DPW resource time, in my opinion.
More to discuss. It should needs to be addressed. Okay, anything else on DPW, Pete, or anybody else? Okay. Change work orders. Oh, yeah, wastewater treatment monthly report. Police report.
I have a comment on the police report.
Mhm.
I have requested chief in the past provide us with reports sort of on par with our other departments, which he did do maybe 1 month, but it's been back
Yeah.
to this, which I think we all agree is not really helpful in providing information. So I'm not sure how we provide that feedback back to chief. Kim, could you let him know that?
Yep.
We?
You want a written report?
Agreed, yeah. No. I
Yeah,
totally
I
agree.
like the written report.
Totally agree. And we've been asking for it for years now.
Yeah.
And we've seen one or two in years.
Not that I want him to give us an analyst report, but, you know, are these numbers telling him anything?
It tells me zip.
Yeah, well, he's the expert, right? He's
Yeah,
the
like-
law enforcement expert. You know,
Right,
is-
analyze this for me if
is,
this
you
is
know,
meaningful information.
Do we see
How?
an increase in vehicle accidents? And
Yes.
is it related to anything else? Is it the time of year? You know, is he seeing more public disturbance
So you want
problems?
more analysis on that?
Yeah, just a little bit more
Sure.
so that we, you know, if people come to us, this is the whole reason I think I asked for it the last
Other
time
tickets,
too,
yeah.
is when people ask, what are they doing? At least we could have an answer other than give them this is going to tell them anything.
Right. Okay. I will forward on the.
Okay, OEO's report, ordinance enforcement officer. And to some extent, there's still issues with regard to this report. I know it's been,
She is
It's what it is
slowly
before.
integrating this into our new work order software, so we'll be able to get a more detailed report like we do with DPW.
okay.
So it's just a slow process of
And-
getting it all integrated in there.
So I guess the one question I do have is just so that I understand what I'm reading here a little bit better. So, like on the most recent dates are all October, right? We have a second observance date, a second letter, and then a date the letter was sent. I'm just using the one on Hamilton as an example, but it says closed. What does that say that they sent a letter and there was something happened that changed the status to closed, or is it that because a letter was sent, it's closed?
That is my assumption, is that after the second letter, she went back to observe and it was taken care of.
Okay.
So it was then closed.
So a result happened.
Yes. Yes.
I just have to say that ironically, as a farming community, to see chickens wandering around on this report is just very hilarious to me.
Well, the problem is,
Sounds like across multiple properties though, I think.
the problem is they're walking around on the sidewalk on West. Side.
Yeah, I know. I see them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there was a personal observation. of a chicken and a duck being best buddies. You could not separate them. And they would hang out on, used to be my driveway. Those two were inseparable. A chicken and a duck. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, that property was purchased. That became an interesting site. Building permit report, aka Construction Code Authority. Financial position report. And clerk treasurer's report.
Okay, I have to transcribe my day-to-day.
Yeah, wonderful attachment.
Just run a computer.
Well, I figured since I was the voting member for you all at that conference, that you should know what we voted on.
No, it was good, I thought.
But, to enhance the report and what you attached, can you identify each of the people in this picture?
No,
I don't see you there.
no.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, entertain a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, motion made by President Pro Tem Dykes, supported by Councilmember Steffler, to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Objections? Unanimously approved by all council members in attendance. Moving on to public comment time for any item that is on our regular agenda. Is there any public comment this evening as to any regular agenda item? Being none. Regular agenda, road closure request, holiday light parade. And so I think we have a letter from our DDA director. So this is indicating, this informing council, that the 25th, actually, I think it's much more than 25, annual Almont Holiday Light Parade will be occurring on Saturday, December 2. And she's enclosed a copy of the request in order to close M53, along with a map of the road closures noted by stars that we submitted to MDOT in order to close M53 from Tub Spring to Huff for the parade. And DDA is requesting also the closure of East St. Clair from Bristol Street to Van Dyke on the day of the parade. And that closure beginning at 12 noon. And yeah, so that's her request, or the DDA executive director's request.
So I'm assuming since there's officers' names assigned to these posts, this is already in agreement with the chief, so we avoid any.
That was from the chief.
This was from the chief,
That
okay.
was on your desk.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yep, that was from the chief, explaining all the duties and what their plan was.
so hats off to the chief for getting on top of this. So.
Little more comprehensive than Heritage Festival.
And I had no idea MapQuest was still a useful tool.
Never know.
But yes, and also the map in here, perfect.
Yes.
So we're only approving the St. Clair closure because we don't have jurisdiction over the 53 closure, correct?
Correct.
I'll make the motion that we approve the closing of St. Clair from M53 to Van Dyke. Closing of East St. Clair from M53 to Bristol Street from noon to 9 p.m. on December 2nd for the Holly Festival festivities.
Support.
Okay, motion made by President Pro Tem Dykes, supported by Councilmember Kowalski, for the road closure request for the holiday light parade as indicated on the record. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Objections? Unanimously approved by all council members in attendance. Moving on to regular agenda item number 2, EQ valve labor cost approval. Clint,
As council is aware, I sent out a straw poll request to get this work on the schedule. 4 members approved, so we went ahead with that, and actually, the work is already done. They came out Friday. It just so happened to work with their schedule. The amount was for $5,000, so I am just asking council to ratify
By Kennedy excavating.
by Kennedy Excavating.
Yeah, it sounds like it would be a ratification. Okay, and discussion from council regarding the EQ valve and the purchase, the work already being done.
I'll make the motion that we approve the quote.
Ratification.
Or, yeah,
Ratification.
Ratification of,
The action taken.
yeah, the expense. $5,000 to Kennedy Excavating.
Motion made by Councilmember Steffler, supported by President Pro Tem Dyke, to ratify the Kennedy Excavating $5,000 job for the EQ valve labor, which has already been paid, and the motion is for approval of that action already taken. i.e. ratification. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Objections? Unanimously approved by all those council members in attendance. Agenda item number 3, MERS Plan Adoption Amendment. Kim, can you make any kind of presentation to us
Yes,
regarding
enclosed
that?
in your packet are 2 plan adoption agreements from MERS. This was stemming from a memorandum of understanding that was signed back in May of 2023 with POAM. And essentially, the full-time employees receive service credit for working at least 80 hours in the month. And they also retain their service credit if they are out on workman's comp, short-term disability, those types of leaves. And in MERS world, it has to be effective July 1st of 22.
About that.
Yeah,
I
it
was like, I
wasn't a
think there's a typo.
No, it wasn't a typo.
So with regard to the second bullet point hyphen,
Mhm.
So full-time employees receive service credit, then short-term, long-term, so that could go on for years, and work comp, which I used to do a lot of, that can go on for years. So there's no time limitation.
There is a time limitation, right off the top of my head. I cannot think of what that, I want to say it's 12 weeks.
That would be reasonable. Yeah, I mean,
And then after
Yeah.
that, they no longer
okay,
receive the
Service
service
credit.
credit.
yeah. Because I'm handling these kind of cases, they can literally go on for years. So, okay, just want to make
So
sure.
what that's saying is if they are normally scheduled for 80 hours a month and they go to short-term or long-term disability or workman's comp duty disability for a certain amount of time, or to assume that they were going to get their 80 hours so they get their service credit.
Well, it's not worded that way, though. I mean.
Okay,
they-
so if full-time, they're 2 separate issues. So if they work a minimum of 80 hours in the month, which really they're going to be working 173.33 hours for a full-time officer. If they work a minimum of 80 hours, they get service credit for that month. If they're not on leave, if they are on workman's comp or short-term disability, then they will get the service credit for that month if they are on official leave. But if it was just, say, administrative leave, pending investigation, that type stuff, if it was if they worked less than 80 hours, they would not receive service credit.
So hypothetically, if an officer, let's say, only works 65 hours,
Would not receive service credit for that month.
Because the way MERS works is so many months of service credit plus
Yep.
age equals retirement package.
I understand that part. Why do you have to, if they work 80 hours, say, okay, you
In a-
get credit for the 80 hours. Why do you need to state that? If they work
Because
80
that's
hours?
not considered, under 80 hours is not considered full-time work.
Right. So
So less than
So-
full-time does not get MERS benefits.
Correct.
doesn't make any sense. Full-time employees receive service credit for working at least 80 hours in a month. So why do we have to say that if a full-time employee actually works 80 hours in a month? Because they would get that anyway,
So,
wouldn't they?
so.
Why is
if
it
he
a
doesn't-
special
So if he
provision?
doesn't work 80 hours in a month, he doesn't get it.
Yeah,
Well,
That's why.
but
it doesn't say that.
what you're reading between the lines or not reading between the lines maybe, I'm speculating completely on this, is, as an example, part-time police officers work for multiple locations, multiple municipalities that are all MERS tied together. If they don't work 80 hours for any one place, they don't get MERS credit, but they probably work more than 80 hours in a month. So we have to state that it has to be somebody that works for us 80 hours to be considered full-time.
Correct.
Except for the fact that it says full-time employees, not part-timers. I still don't understand why it's even in there, but okay. Maybe, yeah. Well, why should you understand government and contracts and retirement plans and don't even pretend? It's like, what? Okay, I mean, yeah, okay. I don't think there's any,
Possible circumstances where a part-time employee would work beyond 80 hours and
Yes.
demand MERS credit, and that's probably why the full-time language is in there.
Correct.
okay. I won't ask him my lawyer-like questions if I. Sorry, okay, whatever you say. Do we have any further discussion on this? Somebody want to make a motion? It's like,
I'll make a motion to adopt the defined benefit plan, adoption agreement for the defined benefit plan and hybrid plan for the police department effective July 1 of 2022.
motion made by Councilmember Feldman, supported by Councilmember Glasser, to approve the MERS plan adoptions for the police department. As further stated on the record, it is for defined benefit and a hybrid plan as well. Any further discussion?
Just have one question, even though I was the guy who made the motion. Does this retroactively take effect for employees who were employed at that time but no longer employed now?
It wouldn't affect anyone that are no longer employed here.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Objections? Unanimously approved by all those council members in attendance. Regular agenda item number 4, investment policy. Kim and Dolly, that's yours. Yes.
Council wanted a copy of the investment policies and procedures after the discussion about Michigan class last meeting. So I have enclosed that. Again, this is, we have policies and procedures in place where it's not one person that is doing all of this. It does have to have that second signatory. We have written procedures where if I authorize it, someone else has to look at it and approve it. So it's not just on one person, behind the scenes type thing. And also it's just to keep us liquid, to be able to do transactions quickly, instead of waiting for council meetings and approval. It's just for day-to-day business. We already have what's called CDARs in place with Tri-County and Choice One, where they automatically sweep back and forth to keep us in FDIC compliance. So we have minimal risk there. So that's an automatic transfer. So there's no second signatory for that. But the bank is initiating that sweep, not one single person. And I've enclosed in the memo what I propose investing into Michigan Class. But I just wanted council to review the policy, the procedure, to see if they wanted any changes made to that policy.
So is the second party supposed to be the village manager?
Or deputy clerk treasurer.
That's interesting.
So is the Michigan Class account is different than FDIC backed?
Yes. Yes, that's a pure investment class.
So this invites question. So under ordinary circumstances, if things were ordinary and normal, which of course they aren't, manager's not here. So it would fall back on your deputy. And that brings into question the knowledge, capabilities, expertise, experience of the deputy. Is that something that should be looked at? I mean, that would be a question you would normally ask. If we were having a trial or something, you would always ask
Sure.
that question.
Sure.
And in this situation, I don't know whether your deputy has sufficient credentials, shall we say, to make a judgment. The reason for a second signature is for somebody else to look at it and I presume exercise his or her judgment. So I'm asking.
Or is it just so that nobody can move money unbeknownst to anybody else around them? Yeah.
I would agree with that.
I wouldn't, I don't know the deputy treasurer's background, other than I believe she does have an accounting degree. I would say that a village manager would have any more credentials than a CPA or an accountant. As a matter of fact, they may have less credentials when it comes to finance and money.
Without meaning to speak in a derogatory manner, I wouldn't equate the village manager to the deputy clerk treasurer.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
wouldn't either, but.
The manager is a person of extensive experience, and is he an accountant or CPA or financial advisor, whatever, but at least there is financial background where he has been in charge of funds, funding, investments to be made. I don't see them as equivalent.
Are all three employees bonded?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Well, and the thing is, the only person here sitting in this room right now that could address the credentials of the deputy would be you.
Yes.
And if you want to address it at this point, fine. If not, then.
No,
Me-
I think my deputy is more than capable of making that decision, and technically she is my fill-in if I'm
Mhm.
not here. And I wouldn't have put her in that position if I didn't think she was capable.
Can you indicate anything to us other than generalities in what you just stated, what her credentials would be in her background?
Well, I mean, she's had several municipal jobs. She's worked in New Haven, she's worked in Emily City. So she has that experience to go with it. And again, it's all in training too. So I've taught her what to look for in certain situations, and you know, I always say, what would the auditors say
Mhm.
if they pulled out this piece of paper?
Right.
Would you be able to defend it? And basically, that is my line. If the auditors are going to see this, what questions are they going to ask? And
Mhm.
make sure that all those questions are answered before you do the transaction.
So essentially, you're vouching for her.
Yes.
And so I think everybody here has.
How often do we do transactions of that magnitude?
Probably not as often. With Michigan Class, I don't know. This is different. Before we did the automatic sweeps, it was maybe once every 2 months. So it wasn't that often. And I don't anticipate me doing a lot of movement with Michigan Class
It's gonna be an initial,
investment.
and as a protection area, we could probably request that be brought to council for approval before we do the initial investment.
And that's what is
That's what's here.
in the memo. That was the.
So
yeah.
I think we're protected.
Okay, yeah, that was
And-
one of the
and-
things that I.
And if you read the policy, it says that on a quarterly basis, should we want to have a review of what has happened in the last quarter? So there shouldn't be any more than a 90-day period between, you know, if 1 or 2 transactions happen, we should see it.
Okay. And I do plan on adding more detail. I'm not exactly what you're looking for. It depends on how it looks statement wise on the Michigan Class, but I do plan on putting it on the financial position report as well, monthly, so you can see on a monthly basis rather than a quarterly. But if you want more detail on the quarterly, I can certainly do that as well.
If you're giving us an explanation, you would be explaining the basis for making that investment. You're looking at it, you think it's stable, not high risk or minimal risk.
Right.
And good investment to expect a good return. That sort of thing. I would imagine that's what you would be providing to us.
Mm-hmm.
So are you going to need a motion on this?
No, only if you wanted to make changes to the policy or the procedure or whatever you would like.
If you don't need a motion, I think I would at least like to ask council if we have a consensus as to the procedures
Should
that
there
have
be
been.
some rules around a fund like this, though, that it's monitored? You know, like, I mean, we all know the economy could be a house of cards. We've all woke up and had some really bad news. So who's going to be checking on this? Because I know they said they can liquidate within a day, but how quickly are we responding? And do you need 2 signatures at that time to zap the money back out?
Yes.
So that's where we need to be careful to say, okay, you know, we have to act quickly in those situations.
Right.
And then does it make sense? Because, you know, there's a little more protection with the banks, like we all know. Does it make sense in cases like this, to your point, where it's either, you know, management approval in addition to, or council, you know, they're in situations like this when we're putting it into an investment fund, just for that added layer of everyone's protection. So I think there needs to be a protocol in place just to monitor these types of situations where if we do have to liquidate quickly, sounds like they can do it within a day. Like they stated, you know, we need to say, okay, you're authorized to do that, get it done, you know.
So that'd be an addendum to the current policy for investment funds that are not FD protected?
That you want,
I think that's already in the policy, but.
yes. It's already in the policy for me to have the ability to do that, as long as there's a second signature.
Okay, so what that's saying is already taken care of.
Yes, yeah, I mean, it's in the policy already.
Isn't part of the issue that Ed is raising is what's the monitoring policy? I mean, if you take, what I'd say, it's like it should be checked on a daily basis, first thing when you get up in the morning.
Yeah, that's basically what I do now.
Okay, that's 3:00 in the morning, right?
Not that early
Oh,
lately.
okay. Got it. Okay. All right.
But if council would, make a motion, agreeing to the initial investment as per my memo, I mean, that's up to you.
If you want a motion,
I,
see, that's the
it's
problem.
whatever council is comfortable with.
Mhm. Council, what are we comfortable with?
So I guess the question I have about the amounts that are in the amount column, that's what our initial feeler is gonna be.
Mhm.
There is no real cap though, kind of.
Correct.
I understand the automation between the two bank accounts and we try to keep it within FDIC rules so that we're protected should, another big bank go upside down.
So the amount, so you have fund general 250, current investment balance 22,300,000, blah, blah, blah.
Right,
So you're asking for 930 total investment to start.
correct.
And then the balance of these other ones is just sitting in.
In that Cedars accounts, yep.
It's a long-term strategy to slide more once we see how this class.
Yes, depending, yeah.
Seem to have a better return.
Yes,
And
Yes.
based on, and based on.
They do.
yes,
And based on last meeting's presentation, the main two reasons we're doing this is for the liquidity and the higher investment rate of return. I'll make the motion that we use the clerk's recommendation and move a total of $930,000 to the Michigan Class Act investment as broken down in her memo as presented.
Support.
Motion made by President Pro Tem Dyke, supported by Councilmember, was Feldman? Was you, Pete? For the investment, first step investment as recommended by our clerk treasurer, as stated on the record. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimously approved by all council members in attendance. Regular agenda number 5, depreciation expense. Kim?
yes, everybody's favorite, accounting.
Yeah, yes. Yeah,
My favorite, probably nobody else's.
I think I flunked accounting in
Kim
law
has
school.
dreams about depreciation.
Appreciate everything you do.
Oh, that was good. So depreciation expense is a non-cash expense. It is strictly for the income statement. It has no cash value. This is part of GASB 34 recommendation or requirements in our audit that we have this income statement. And we do have to depreciate our assets over years rather than it hitting one fiscal year all at the same time. So since it is non-cash expense, Mr. Trent and I wanted to remove it from the budget just to give us a true cash usage on our budget items. Because like, for example, in the sewer fund, it was a $112,560 that could be used towards our more capital projects, that type of thing. So it just gives you a true cash budget rather than I don't want to say imaginary, but non-cash budget.
This isn't a tax return.
Right,
It's what funds are available.
right.
I don't see a downside to it.
Yeah, and depreciation expense really doesn't mean a lot in municipal world because it reduces the tax liability for any other corporation. Where in government, we don't pay tax. So it really,
Yeah,
It
I
does-
could see it if we, for a community, didn't do like asset management and capital improvement plans. That might be a helpful tool,
Mhm.
but we do all those things.
right. Right.
So that's what makes me feel comfortable moving forward with your proposal.
Me too. I don't know if we have further discussion, but are you going to need a motion on this?
If everybody is comfortable with removing that depreciation expense line item, it'll just be in the second quarter budget amendments as a reduction.
That time.
And you can make a motion at that time.
Okay. And not even, it's not necessarily even stated as a policy that we will no longer. Okay.
It's very common not to use
Mhm.
depreciation expense in budgets.
And didn't our auditors, I mean, the last meeting, they said that they're gonna add it in anyways when they
At the
do
end
the
of the year.
roll up at the end of the year.
Yep.
Still will be a line item in our audit, but
Right.
just not on a monthly basis for us to
Okay.
pretend like we don't have money sitting there.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Everybody okay with that?
Objection here?
Okay. Sounds good. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's very, but yeah. not. All right, moving on to regular agenda, item number 6, interim manager position. There's been discussion between me and, at least, and staff administration. We need an interim manager. Too much gets loaded onto Kim's plate, and there's a lot going on, and there at least is a consensus between staff, administration, and myself that we need to reach out to see if we can find a manager. There was a discussion going back at least a month where we thought there might be a party that had previous experience, a fairly good reputation, that might be able to fill in. He has, he's MIA, can't find him. And Kim has looked at, I think what MML's list of candidates who were looking for a position like this. I think Kim indicated she knew one of them, and she was not enthused about recommending this person. And so the concept at this point is, if council agrees, is to post it. So we would need council's approval for that. And then if, and setting a deadline, right, for applicants. And then some discussion has taken place as to, well, if we do get applicants, and hopefully we will, that we think are qualified, that we have a selection committee to interview any applicants that we believe qualify at least to be interviewed, and then bring that back to council. And obviously also try to move with some alacrity, speed. Did I accurately set it forth?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Do
mean,
you
you
want
can
to advertise for it?
Oh, I thought you were just posted with MML, but
Well, no, I just took the interim manager list from the MME, made a list of people who were available. And then I
speed up the process?
kind of speed up the process, have the selection committee review these individuals, see who they would be interested in talking with, and then do recommendations to council from there.
These are people who have already posted.
Yes,
Looking for-
yes, they are on the interim manager
They're on the
list.
site.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mentioned this in conversation with Steve also. I think we also need to put parameters around what the interim manager will be kind of focused on. Specific items to be focused on. I mean, they'd still be the manager, but in the last situation, I think we had a situation where there were focuses that weren't looked at and other focuses that probably didn't need to be. So
Some specific
So-
tasks or
specific
parameters,
tasks or
yeah.
specific areas of, yeah.
And so we don't run into issues that occurred in prior experience with an interim manager.
And maybe in discussions with Kim, the committee could come up with those, help also come up with those parameters.
So council is in favor of that posting, right?
Or not
So-
posting,
Well,
but
don't call
like,
posting.
yeah.
Whatever
So
adjective.
what kind of timeframes are we talking about, right?
Pretty quickly, I would.
But
think,
so
just because-
what duration are we considering? 4 months, 6 months?
I would assume specify 3 months and extend it if needed, depending on
Mhm.
current manager health situation.
And
I'm just going through in my head the hiring process time, the get up to speed and be accepted by the staff time, and then the, hey, today's your last day time. Because
A lot of these
nobody
are-
steps in, especially,
But a lot of these are retired managers that have experience that won't hit the ground running, but it's not gonna take them 6 months to come around either. I mean, they're gonna have enough experience coming in to look at the checklist and say, this is what I need to be focused on. I would assume.
And I'm recommending a selection committee consisting of Mindy, Ed, and myself. Tim said he sat in so many of these, he doesn't ever want to sit in one again.
No, that's not what I said. I
That-
said
that-
that,
yeah,
I
that's
said
your
that I
words.
think both Mindy and Ed with their managerial experience, and I think it's a good way for Ed to get deeper involved into council, that they would bring more to, they'd bring a lot to the table in this enhanced area.
So if you're willing, we would like to have council ratify that recommendation for a selection committee. I mean, we don't even know if we're going to get responses, but, or any that we think need, should be interviewed, but we should be putting something in place.
Yeah, I can assist.
Okay, thank you. And, okay, and I will also. So now, we need motions, don't we? Need motion for, we don't,
Two motions. I'll make the
I would
motion,
think-
I'll make the motion that we establish a interim manager hiring committee consisting of Ed, Mindy, and Steve as the members. To search out an interim manager.
and you don't call it posting, but we need a motion as to that as well, don't we?
Do we get a search?
To begin a search.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's what your
actual
motion
search.
just said.
Yeah, I think it can be all one motion.
Okay,
I make a motion that we appoint Ed, Mindy, and Steve as the interim manager committee, and that this also gives council jurisdiction to seek a interim manager hiring process, and that the committee also have the latitude to put parameters around and define the parameters of what the interim manager's responsibilities would be.
is there Is there a second? Motion made by President Pro Tem Dyke, supported by Councilmember Glasser, to conduct a search for interim manager and selection committee, considering of Mindy, Ed, and Steve. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Objections? Being none, unanimously approved by all those council members in attendance. That wraps up our regular agenda for this evening. Now it's time for public comment. For any non-agenda item, is there any public comment? Being none. Do not have open discussion, no closed session, my gosh. And comment time. Kim, anything to bring to council?
Yes, I just wanted council to be aware, we have to file the CVTRS paperwork, and it requires the chief financial officer, AKA village manager, to sign those documents. However, in the absence of the village manager, according to the state statute, it can be the president. So I just wanted everyone to be aware that Steve would be signing that paperwork if everybody's.
Yeah. I'm going to discuss that. And since the statute provides for it, I don't see a problem with it unless council members object. Don't like it. Whatever.
Yep, the report's all ready to go. We just gotta get your
Good.
signature.
Okay.
So,
How soon do I have to sign?
I can get it to you tomorrow,
Okay.
actually.
It's fine.
Yep.
I'll be in.
Okay,
Okay.
great. And happy Thanksgiving.
Gobble, gobble. Wayne?
Yeah, two things. Had a couple people wanting to, again, just kind of know what the leaf ordinance was about pushing leaves out until the median almost where you're actually driving to leaf piles.
Allowed.
Right. So that was one of the things I've gotten a lot of complaints about is just, can we tighten up that or enforce it more where people aren't running through the wet leaves and sliding, hitting them and, pushing them back. The second one was I've had quite a few businesses in the last couple of weeks giving me a call and having some complaints about obviously blight with other businesses, code enforcement, leaving businesses. Obviously, it sounds like our staff has intervened in some of the businesses and stuff, so forth, of having conversations about work and things of that nature. So, and a lot of the businesses are kind of saying, well, why is this one getting this and I'm not getting that? And what's kind of going on with some of these deals and these landlords and, who's enforcing these codes and our codes being pulled. So yeah, I've had probably quite a few businesses that are not too happy with what's going on downtown.
And you recall any specifics?
Yeah, it was kind of the new Mexican place going up. The one was obviously the vacant property that's kind of getting all moldy and, obviously across the street with your wife's property and what's going on with her place. And a lot of the businesses were just kind of like, how are we helping to make these code enforcements and things and help people get resolution and stuff like that too. So I think it's kind of a mixed bag where the businesses are just kind of like, what's kind of going on down here. And they wanted me to ask the council if there's ways that we could potentially try to, enforce things or what things should we be getting involved in and what things shouldn't we be getting involved in.
Is it that code, they feel like codes are being unfairly enforced, like
Yeah.
pick and choose
Yeah.
type of things?
Yeah, that and, obviously deals that are we supposed to be making deals from the council side and from the village side and.
That's being addressed.
Yeah.
You could tell them, I'm sure they'll accept this, some rule of law.
Right.
They'll say, oh, okay, fine. Sure.
Right, 100%, right.
Does that exist anymore? Not too sure. But it does in the village. And yes, so there's been rumor mill things going around. My understanding with regard to what was the huddle and Senior Victor's is that he was not taking any steps in the interior that required a permit. So, and I think that was confirmed by our manager. So if
And that was-
Unless there's indication otherwise, then there's nothing improper going on inside of there, but they think maybe there is.
yeah, or
No,
who's watching, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if they might have gotten themselves in trouble with that, with pictures they're posting in social media. I mean, when you show the huddle and then you show completely gutted down to the studs interior.
See when they tore out the front, how bad it was rotted out?
Yeah, and then the next picture they show is all this new stuff in,
Yeah,
and then no permitting happening.
So that's
It's
not
got-
code enforcement.
That's the kind
Yeah,
of
that part too, yeah.
that's kind of, I can see where that would raise questions, because I wondered the same thing. It's like, hey, who's doing electrical work? Who's doing contracting work?
It's a lot of
Who's-
them mixed, and it was a consensus, it's kind of like, you got like the new veterinarian and it's not doing much, or there's no one's taking care of the grounds and things of that nature too. Like the businesses have to be somewhat having some kind of the same rules. I guess that was what a lot of the businesses were kind of concerned with, like who's actually monitoring them and what they're doing.
So that is a good question. Is it code enforcement that goes to see if people have permits, or is that,
CCA.
oh,
Only if called.
right,
That's-
yeah. 'cause
Right.
They're not gonna cruise around neighborhoods looking to see who's got permits.
And that's kind of where it came up too, because it was like, well,
Well,
I don't
they-
want to start
they do
problems
that
with
to a
my
point,
other
though.
neighbor, but
I've seen it because when they come out and actually do their inspections, I've
They
seen
might
them
see others, but
nail people right and left. But I would kind of imagine a business going through a renovation, they're gonna poke their head in there and see what's going on. So I know there's,
does
in
the
a lot of the-
CCA have authority to?
yeah, I mean, I've seen them pop, a few people are just changing a door out because if you're
Who's the-
changing the structure, yeah, they've getting fined for it. I
Who's
mean,
the letter come from?
well, I mean, it happened to my parents in Attica. I mean, they watched our house like a hawk. And the moment we put headers in over our windows, they got popped. So they do it. I mean, I don't know how often they do it, but they do it. So
Yeah, well, we've had that happen here in the village as
Mhm.
well.
Right,
One
my
particular
question is,
builder.
does the letter come from construction code authority, like
yes, if I do
using
recall,
our ordinances?
Yes.
Yeah, but they were
They're just
hired.
a third party hired.
Right, right,
They replaced their, CCA replaced their building inspector.
right, I know
So
that,
the-
but I
yeah,
didn't know if
yeah.
that replaced,
Yeah,
like
they're,
who goes out to make sure people have permits
Hmm.
to do work?
well, and as I understand, sometimes they receive reports, hey, this is going on, or
Right,
some,
right, or our
our-
code enforcement officer would say,
and a lot of them are saying the same thing too, like ones that have landlords and stuff that don't want to do things or fix things, and
Mhm.
like versus they don't want to get in trouble, but
yeah.
what's helping protect them,
Yeah. And the public-private situation is being addressed, and we will be carefully monitoring that issue. So if anybody raises that with you, just indicate the village is addressing it.
yeah, and part of that, I think, is if you have a concern, call construction code authority. Why,
Yeah, I mean, you
and
can,
I come from a regulatory agency where I get complaints all the time. Like, that's within anyone's right.
Well-
Call someone and say, I don't think they have a permit.
And I
Yeah.
can look at the detail of this monthly report and see if they're on
Walking
it.
around complaining.
Because I
Can't
do
stand that
see
stuff.
electrical and
well, and I think a lot of it,
mechanical on here, so.
and I think a lot of it too is because they're seeing our employees and stuff in the buildings and kind of saying, well, who's then? Why are you guys doing?
Like
What are you
if-
guys doing?
Our staff too, if they see like, there should be a permit for this work.
Yep. Yeah, so that issue's not being ignored. But yes, small town and rumors going around and people all stirred up, and we're not ignoring it.
And that's what I was asked that I could
Yeah.
put on the
Mm-hmm.
tape.
Yeah. And it's a legitimate concern, and so it's not only being addressed at the present time, it will be carefully monitored in the future. It may come up that undoubtedly come up before council at a certain point in time down the road. Anything else, Wayne?
That's it.
Pete?
Nope, other than I see the barrels that got moved.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Yes, and I didn't get a response, we didn't get a response back from our letter, so.
Tim?
Yeah, Ed said earlier, but two things. This report from Andy, this is the kind of stuff we're looking for. I mean, it spells it out, it's in writing, so there's commitment. Well done. Out on one of my sojourns the other day, one of our officers was radaring and protecting West St. Clair and taking actions. So that's good to see. So just kudos to the police department for, and the radar signs are back out. They'll probably be going in for the winter soon, but they've been very well moved around town in different areas this year. I thought that was well done. So.
Yeah, people do speed down at West St. Clair. You're not going 25. Yeah. All set, Tim? Mindy?
Nothing for me.
Ed?
Nope, just happy Thanksgiving and go Lions. So.
Yes. There's that, and gobble gobble. And the Raiders Division 6 game will be, you can pick it up online. Apparently you can watch the game. And it's Raiders at Ford Field against Kingsley. Rich boys, they probably have Adamakan Sue and Jared Goff at quarterback. And oh yeah, our new hero, Jeff Montgomery's. Yeah, great runner. It's going to be on at 4:30, and as far as I understand it, it's going to be on at Mikey's, Alex, whoever. It's going to be on there too, so we can actually watch there. And I'm disappointed today. Just a little incident happened. Somebody called the office and asked to speak to me, and I was tied up, and my receptionist says, screens calls very carefully, can I ask what it's about? And he said, it's about the Almont Raiders. And she asked if he could call back, and he said, well, no. He said, my story's due in an hour, and I'll report on you if you get back to Ford Field again. So I missed that call. So I presume it was a newspaper report sometime, because typically you get the reports, I got an hour to go. And so shoot, yeah, that was unfortunate. And the last time we were there, we got creamed by another kind of,
East Lansing Catholic.
yeah. And so essentially these private schools, you have to pay, I don't know, $15,000-$20,000 a year for your kid to be in that
Kingsley's
school.
not private school. It's
Yeah,
public.
that's they're
Kingsley's
not
public.
private. That's the only thing that they,
Oh, if you can't watch the game, it's also being televised or telecast via internet on thumbtailgaters.com.
Thumb tailgater tech.
tailgaters.com.
Oh, wow, fantastic. No, let me write that down. What else? Was there anything else? No, I think that's it. So we're adjourned. It was thumb.